And just like that, a fourth Bruin is headed to the transfer portal. Sebastian Mack joins Dylan Andrews, William Kyle III, and Devin Williams. How does that impact the team? Well, I think it all starts with Donovan Dent and a red shirt.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast. Ads available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. It's your team literally every day. Come on, working all the 7 days a week here pretty much, and sometimes multiple pods a week, or a day, I should say. Here we go, UCLA and the transfer portal. It has been very busy for the Bruins on people walking through the exit, and one very important player coming through the entrance, and we know that to be Donovan Dent. Now, some Bruins we should remember, as I mentioned before, Dylan Andrews, William Kyle III. Kyle already has a new home in Syracuse. You've got Devin Williams, who was one of those red shirts who departed from UCLA, and now Sebastian Mack. All this has to be intertwined with the mixture of who's returning for UCLA, who is a red shirt coming off, probably ready to play, and Donovan Dent. Dent is the person who's going to command a bulk of the starting minutes. He averages a lot of points. He comes from the Mountain West. I think I've seen some talk of, he's coming from the Mountain West. No. Let's stop that talk right there. Donovan Dent is a game changer. He is better than what UCLA had in the backcourt last year, and would have been a significant upgrade for the Bruins when they played Tennessee, all right? It's not like New Mexico was some weak team. No, they played some of the best teams, and Dent was a key factor in those victories, all right? Now, the big starting line for the Lobos, certainly a huge thing, but Dent was there balling out against some teams they beat or lost to in the NCAA tournament, including beating UCLA earlier in the year, okay? If the Bruins have Donovan Dent, they're going to be good, and they have his commitments, so they will be extra good. Now, let's kind of shift to what this means. Sebastian Mack joining Dylan Andrews in the transfer portal. Those are two guys we were wondering, maybe one, if not both, would head into it. Andrews headed in earlier in the week. Made me wonder, UCLA's probably got something cooking. Well, it came up ready very early, prior to the Final Four weekend, when the portal opened Monday. Next thing you know, by Friday, the Bruins have one of their key contributors for next season, while losing another one in Sebastian Mack. Mack comes in. This is a guy who, through 2 years, has been battling through starting lineups, a toe injury, a six-man role. I was hoping he could come through and maybe be a sixth player of the year next year. Obviously, that's not the case. In his UCLA career, Mack started nearly half of his games at UCLA, averaged about 24 minutes played, about a 10-point per game score, had 75 steals in his career, about an assist per game, and a couple rebounds per game. Wasn't the most efficient shooter, 29% from three compared to 40% from the floor. And if you want to compare that to Donovan Dent's numbers, Dent is a career 50% shooter, and he is also coming off a 40% year from three while having better numbers from the free throw line than Sebastian Mack. Now, Cronin would lean on Sebastian in almost every key critical moment down the stretch, right? We've seen many times in second halves of games that the ball would stick to Sebastian Mack's hands, where it's like, are they even running an offense, or is the ball running through Mack? And I'm not necessarily going to blame Mack for that all the time, because when you saw the game on the line, North Carolina, Northwestern, right? You saw the game multiple times on the line. Mack would go drive the basketball and try and win the game for the Bruins. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Now, in terms of last-second shots, it never seemed to work for UCLA in their favor, but there are times when he'd go make ridiculous drives, some of the crazier UCLA shots I've ever seen with and ones, and be that physical-type player that led UCLA to some big victories this year and in his previous season as a freshman. Now, there's still a lot for him to learn, and with UCLA bringing in a player the caliber of Donovan Dent, the redshirt Eric Freeney is expected to command some role. Trent Perry's return made you wonder, where's all this time going to go? Because Perry's not going to come back if he's going to still sit as much as he did this year, right? He wouldn't do that. He's expecting a bigger role. He's more physical, and I could say he's arguably more talented than Sebastian Mack is. Mack is a different type of player, a physical force that when it got tough, he was the guy that Mick Cronin trusted to rise to the occasion in those uglier physical games, he'd put his head down and go get to the basket. If he wasn't getting the whistles, then it wasn't always the best thing for UCLA. With Eric Freeney coming in, it kind of resets the clock, right? You're trading Dylan Andrews and Donovan Dent, right? Kind of a starter for starter there. A guy that could play 35 minutes with what Dylan Andrews played his sophomore year, and hoping to get a lot of production out of Dent at a much better rate, more efficient rate shooting, and you get the same passing numbers without the turnovers from Dent, hopefully. For Sebastian Mack, you're trading those minutes with Trent Perry. You're battling with Eric Freeney because you can reset the clock. You go from incoming junior to incoming redshirt freshman. You get younger. Perry is going to take those minutes probably in a Sebastian Mack role. And then Freeney is the guy who he hasn't burned a year of eligibility yet. He's still a freshman coming off a redshirt and can learn his way into a new role and maybe play his way into a bigger role this upcoming season because there's still a 3 spot open, right? There's still that extra wing spot available for UCLA where they got to hit it in the high school recruiting. If there's anybody left, hint, hint, go find Burries, or they've got to go continue to work in the transfer portal. All this means is UCLA is going to have some much improved late game offensive sense, okay? Instead of relying on Mack driving downhill and turning his head and maybe turning it over or getting a call or being very close in some instances. I like that there are times he was very close to getting to the bucket. There's better plays than just running downhill with Mack with 5 seconds left. I can tell you there are much better plays. A la Houston versus Purdue last second play. You pass the ball and you get a bucket, okay? This is not all on Sebastian Mack. He's a kid that deserves an opportunity. His numbers improved. He was willing to come to UCLA for a second year and take a reduced role, a reduced rate with the basketball, and still perform at pretty solid levels. That tells you a lot about a kid. But in today's day and age, they're not going to do that for 4 years. They're not going to do that for maybe lesser NIL dollars, for lesser money, when now he's in his upperclassman years and he can go ball out elsewhere where he can command the basketball and put up big numbers. Sebastian Mack can absolutely do that. Now, if he improves his shooting stroke, goes to a specific spot where the guard is expected to drive, gets good screen and roll action, he improves his three-point numbers, that's a guy that will thrive in a different system. And I wish him the best. We wish Dylan Andrews the best, William Kyle III the best, Devin Williams the best. And of course, the guy I thought most expected to leave, Dominic Harris, has yet to put anything in the portal. Of course, for him, he's still got to work on his credits and graduate because he had to work his way to get to UCLA by finishing his classes at LMU and finally get into the portal. So it might be a longer process, or maybe there's a shocking turn of events where we see Dominic Harris back next year. I don't expect it, but that's a guy that had limited minutes, a limited role. That would be the next guy you'd expect to leave. But Sebastian Mack and Dylan Andrews, when we see Trent Perry returning, Eric Freeney off of a redshirt year, and the big name Donovan Dent coming in, arguably the best name in the transfer portal, that is where UCLA is looking to go next year. A little younger in some spots, arguably the lesser role, right? Trent Perry's role might be taken by Freeney. Trent Perry will be taking a Sebastian Mack role in my eyes. And then Dylan Andrews is turning into a Donovan Dent. Sky Clark plays alongside of him. Daly, Villador returning. Now just secure a verbal commitments, a signed commitment, which we've seen from some of these players in a Diamata, and they can go shopping for the rest. Got to go shop for your next big man, a 3, and maybe a backup just to fill your roster spots, which can be scholarships up to 15 for UCLA. Still some work to do, but Sebastian Mack's moving to the portal. Late game sets will change. They'll need a driving force. Maybe that can be Sky Clark, or obviously Donovan Dent can easily get in the paint with his high field goal percentage, his efficient rate he's displayed his entire career at New Mexico. Don't say the Mountain West is a crappy league because they put in multiple teams the last few years, and say, hey, they've got their man. Now they've got to expand to be that top 5 team that John Rothstein thinks this UCLA team can be. Okay, this is a team that will be exciting next year with the continuity mixed with the talent that Cronin's been hoping, wishing for 2 seasons. And hey, one last thing, that class of 2023 got this much smaller. With Sebastian Mack leaving. Isn't that crazy? I'm going to do an episode later this week about the class of 2023. and where it ranks in all-time classes for UCLA recruiting, or worst. I thought they could be a top 5 class, and those players are individually talented, but they did not do anything, mostly at UCLA. We still got to see where Devin Williams fits in, but Adai Mara might be the only steal of the international recruiting and the entire domestic recruiting class of 2023, which is almost all but transferred out. Almost all of them have found homes elsewhere. Isn't that crazy? It is. We'll talk more about it in future Locked On UCLA episodes. March Madness is here, and while we're wrapping it up slowly but surely, FanDuel is still giving you that chance to get on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And hey, that's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to who's cutting down the nets. The FanDuel app is super simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. And hey, there's no waiting around. Visit FanDuel.com and get on the college hoops action all tournament long. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On UCLA. Yeah, hey, tell me what your thoughts are on Sebastian Mack leaving. The class of 2023 that's pretty much evaporated other than Mata, which we wait, and Devin Williams. And then who do you think the Bruins should target next? All while we wait for UCLA LSU. We'll recap that after their Elite Eight battle, and hopefully the Bruins are set for their first Final Four run in program history during the NCAA era. All right, hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.